Hi guys, and welcome to another video. And yes, the one that got away is now firmly back in the box and ready to be reviewed. Following on in the Easter weekend theme for the channel, and we have a micro or mini flying drone. This is what's labelled as the Alpha Transforming Egg Drone, but if you're actually looking to buy it, you will be looking for the Keideng K130 mini egg drone, as it says very nicely on the barcode. This was just an Amazon purchase, £16.99. This is the non-camera version. You can get a camera version. We'll go into more detail about that later. But yeah, this is obviously going to be just a little bit of fun for people. It's not a very expensive thing, but if you're looking for a micro drone, if you're in the market to try and get into drones, or you want to find one for your kids to have a play around with, then hopefully this video is going to be of use to you. So let's dig in and get into what's inside the box. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what you get in the box for the K130. Naturally, you get the instruction manual. Actually quite impressed. It's actually fairly decent English for one of these, I have to say. So what else do we get? We get the egg itself. There it is, about the size of a real egg. This is the non-camera version, I should say. You can get a camera version. It's a little bit more expensive. I think it's about 25 quid. I paid 16 quid for this one. Shame I couldn't get hold of one. It would have taken about 4 weeks to get. So being it's Easter, I wanted to get something, you know, for comedy value, if nothing else. So yeah, so this is the non-camera version of it. We'll have a look at the egg a little bit later. What else do we get? We get 4 spare props. And then I think under there, nothing whatsoever. And then in this little box here, we get the controller. There we go. So we get the controller and we get the charging cable. So nothing particularly interesting about the charging cable. USB 5 volts, and it goes to the standard kind of Pico size thing. So just grabbing one of these. This is the battery from the Nano QX, and that's, as you can see, the same sort of connections basically. So you can probably use your chargers if you've got another drone like that. Let's just have a quick look at the controller. So as you can see, it's not exactly big by any means, but reasonably well sprung, decent range of movements, plenty of buttons on them. And while, you know, some of these often come with like dummy buttons, I believe most of these, if not all of them, do actually do a job. You've got button pushes on the actual sticks themselves. You've got this, which I don't think is actually going to do anything on this model because that's designed for the camera. This is your takeoff and landing. It will do auto takeoff and landing, which we'll look at a little bit later on when we get to flying it. We've then got the on-off here, but you've also got these tabs here. Now these are actually trim tabs, and that's something that's very rare when it comes to you know, something as lightweight and small and as cheap as this. Because one of the problems when you're flying these little micro quadcopters is you can get variations in motor speed. You know, if you chip a prop for whatever reason, you can find that your aircraft starts drifting. So what you want to be able to do, if you fly up straight in the air and it starts slowly moving to the right, you want to be able to trim it to say, you know, counteract that. And these little trim tabs, if I had that problem, it was going to the right, I would go beep beep beep, and basically it tells the onboard system to say, you know, compensate, try and make it stay a little bit more to the left. And then you've got up and down, so forward, backward, left and right, and you know, you can actually try and keep it a bit more stable. So we'll see how they perform in there. And I think also, if you click on this button, so if you depress that does a 360 spin. Again, we'll have a play around with that. This takes 2 AAA batteries, which you just have to open that and pop them in there, and that's basically it. Turn it on, you get a little beep, little red LED, and then you just got to do a binding, which we will cover later. Now, anyway, let's get on to the egg itself. So here she is. Very, very lightweight, as you can imagine. Not a lot to it. Fairly cheap plastic, but you know, funky, functional. The blades are actually, you know, mounted to the motors in this. So all you have really to look at is that's the charging port. So you just plug your USB cable into the charging port, so the battery stays inside it. That's a little bit of a shame, I guess, because obviously something like the Blade QX Nano, that has interchangeable batteries, so you can have 5 or 6 batteries ready. You can have a flight, and then you can, you know, bung another battery in, take the other one out, do some charging. With this, it's more designed as you fly it, you land it, you charge it, you fly it again. So you know, a bit of a shame from that point of view. I think you could probably get to the battery if you wanted to, but not going to be very easy to do. So anyway, to get this little thing open, all you do is you press the on button, which is also a mechanical switch, And there you go, sprung loaded, out come the arms in a very similar way to the Power Vision Power Egg, the much larger one, except that's not actually sprung loaded. But there you go, and that's basically it. So you've got your motors at the top there, obviously inversed. You've got the control board, sits at the top here. Everything underneath here is basically completely non-needed, as it were. Everything at the top, and then I don't know if you can see that, there we go. In there, that is the 200 milliamp 1S battery, I believe. So same format of battery as one of these, just a different form factor, and obviously it's got the same connectors as well. So you could potentially maybe do some retrofitting. I might try pulling it apart and seeing whether or not we could just retrofit it to be able to use these things here. But anyway, that's the basics of it. And then when you want to turn the thing on, all you do is you depress the button again, and you can see everything lights up. It flashes, or it does solid. It's kind of a pinky purple light. But yeah, you'd be able to fly it in the dark if you were brave enough. I think orientation is going to be the major problem on this one, because that is, I believe, the front where the camera would be. But of course, when you're flying, there's not going to be anything particularly obvious about that. So I might just put a little bit of tape on the back so I can actually angle it away from me. But this comes with all sorts of little modes. It has CF mode, which is very similar to DJI's mode, where basically no matter which way you're facing, if you push your stick forward, so if you say I want you to go away from me, doesn't matter what rotation it's in, it will go away from you. So it's quite a funky little thing for the price anyway. Right, with all of that said, I think it's probably time we fold it all down, get it all charged up, get it all bound, and then let's do some flying. So up into the air we go with the K130 Mini Egg drone, and yes, you can see I'm not indoors. This was actually deliberate. I did try doing a bit of flying indoors, but unfortunately my rooms are just too small to get film cameras, all the junk that I own, and a mini drone flying around inside it to be able to get any decent footage. So given that the wind was only about 2 or 3 miles an hour, I thought, you know what, I'll head off to my mum's house, I'll go out in her back garden, and I'll do a bit of flying out there, see how it performs. And I have to admit, I was surprised at how well this does actually perform. Don't get me wrong, I did fly it indoors around my house. I gave it a few goes at doing 360 flips. It flies very well, and I think if you've got big enough rooms, I would be more than happy to encourage you to be flying this indoors when it's a rainy day. It's good fun for it. But if you want to do the 360 flips, then I would suggest, you know, get outside, get a bit of air, get some soft landing material underneath you. Now, with that being said, don't get me wrong, this thing is a tank. This thing will survive anything as far as I can see. As I say, I was flying it indoors, I was flying it doing flips, I was crashing into the floor, the ceiling, light fixtures, everything, and every time I landed it I thought, oh no, there goes the props, there goes the end of this review. And the props were fine, the props weren't even damaged, they weren't even nicked at all. And I think what it is the way that this drone is kind of designed, with the overhanging kind of arms, is they actually act as mini prop guards. Now, whether that's deliberate or whether that's not, either way, it works very, very well, and it means that you can actually bang this into a wall and it won't actually touch your propellers. And that's very important, I think, on a drone this sort of money. You know, £17, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's not throwaway money. And if you give this to a small child, you know, or child of the age that this should be given to, and they go crashing it into a wall and they break the props within one flip, then, you know, you've got to put the spares on. You then put the spares on, you do another flip, smash, that's it, 17 quid down the drone, unhappy child, and you've got to go to China or somewhere like that to actually try and find spare parts for it. With this thing, you can abuse it, you know, don't get me wrong, you'll be able to destroy those props somehow, but from my experience at least, banging it into walls, floors, ceilings certainly doesn't seem to do it, and certainly if you're out in grass and a softer landing, then, you know, feel free to do it. Now, you can see here that what I'm doing is I'm doing the 360 flips and giving you an indication of, number one, the size of the controller, and number two, you know, the kind of responsiveness and the actions for it. Now, the 360 flip mode, all you need to do is you literally use your left hand thumb and you push down. So it's like a PlayStation joypad. It has a click. You click it, and then you hear 3 beeps, and then you give it a direction, and the drone will attempt to flip in that direction. Now, if you try and do this when your battery is below, I would say 50%, then generally speaking, exactly as I've just done there, what you'll find is it will do the flip, but it won't be able to gain the altitude to kind of pull itself back up into the air. So just bear in mind, if you're going to do some flip games, probably wise to do it outside, so you've got at least 5 to 6 feet of space, and likewise, you know, expect to not be doing it after you've flown it for probably 2 or 3 minutes. Now you'll see on this particular one, what I've done, I've got a piece of red tape on the back of it. Now that's purely for my own orientation. One thing that's worth mentioning is that this has a mode. It's called CF mode in the manual, but weirdly the button in the manual is called headless mode, so they kind of refer to the two things. Anyway, the whole point of it is that you press that mode, your little egg, you can't see it outside, but your little egg starts flashing rather than a solid pink light. It'll be a flashing pink light, and what that means is it doesn't care what the yaw axis does whatsoever. So one of the biggest problems for anyone who's flown a little micro drone or any manual drone is orientation is very, very difficult, and for beginners especially it's very challenging. So what CF mode does, or headless mode does, is it means that basically if you push away with the stick, it will fly away from you in a straight line. If you push left, it will go left. If you push right, it goes right. If for whatever reason you accidentally turn the aircraft around, so you spin it around the yaw axis, then those commands will still apply. So it will know that basically if you push forward, it will continue to go away from you. It will go backwards. Now, for someone like me, that's a bit disorientating, but if you're a beginner, it's very, very worthwhile knowing and having a go with. So that's kind of the only flight footage that I really did. I didn't spend too much time, so let's draw some conclusions. So then, conclusions on the Alpha Transforming Egg Drone / K130 Flying Egg Drone. A lot of fun. Really enjoyed having a mess around with this. Obviously, you know, it's a very basic product, this particular one, especially for the fact that this doesn't have the Wi-Fi or the camera. This is literally just fly it with a controller. But, you know, for the money, £16.99 with free delivery with Amazon Prime, really, really good value. The thing is nigh on indestructible. I've literally smashed this into walls, ceilings, concrete, grass, as we've seen in the video, and so far at least I haven't had any damage whatsoever to these props. There's tiny amounts of scuffing maybe on one corner, but that's it. None of them have snapped, none of the arms have broken off. Obviously the fact that there's springs on here means that there's some dampening if it does land upside down, but yeah, really, really good from that point of view, because I mean, let's face it, if you are new to drones, or if you're giving this to a child who is new to drones, then you're going to expect it to be beaten up a little bit. You know, it's going to bang into things, and for that reason I think, you know, the robust nature of this, that's where you're going to get the value for money, because you know you're not going to buy it for 16 quid and then all of a sudden you're going to have to replace it because you've destroyed it. You know, you do get spare props in here. The fact that these have lasted through all of the testing that I've been doing just says to me that, you know, great, you've got 4 extra props, you probably don't need many more, because I've had experiences of things like the Blade Nano QX, which is a much more expensive micro quadcopter, and that is actually, I would say, not even as stable as this sometimes. And if you hit anything, even though it's got sort of semi prop guards on it, they just seem to fly off, they just seem to snap very easily, whereas this seems to be very, very good in that respect. So yeah, very, very impressed with it in that way. Flying wise, excellent. You know, if you are getting into the hobby, then, you know, learning on something like this is a really good way of getting orientation. As you saw in the video, I actually put a little red stripe down the back of it here, and that was the best way for me to tell where it is. But this comes in the mode where you can actually fly it, the IOC mode, as DJI used to call it, where it will just go forward when you push forward and back regardless of the rotation of it. So the fact it's got kind of training wheels modes, it's got trim, it's got auto takeoff and landing with one button. That was really nice. So you just put it on the table, boom, and it's in the air, and it will stay. It's got altitude hold. For the money, you know, I really don't expect that. Trim buttons, I couldn't really feel that they were doing anything, to be honest. When I tried to trim it out, I would often press, and then it would suddenly just shoot off really quickly, and then I'd press again, and it would just go the opposite direction. So whether these actually do anything, I'm sure they're supposed to, but it certainly didn't feel like it. But you know, the controller could do with being a bit bigger. Other things that would be nice, unfortunately, the enclosed battery. That's a real shame, actually, because, you know, you do get 6 minutes of flight time and then you have to charge it again, and that is a bit of a pain, because with things like the Nano QX, like say, you can buy a pack on eBay for next to nothing, you know, 5 quid for about 5 batteries, and then, you know, you can just replace them. You can have a flight, land it, put a new battery in. With this, you have a flight, you land it, and then you have to charge it up again, which is always a bit of a shame. Might mean that you save being pestered by one of these by your kids all day, just because it's on charge all the time. But yeah, that's really, to be honest, the only downside of it. I think controller could do with being a bit bigger, but you know, you don't really expect it to be that because it's not really designed for adults probably. But yeah, anyway, anyone who would like to buy this, by all means check out the link below. It's just an Amazon one. If I can get hold of the one with the camera and the app, and I get a few comments and you're interested to see a review of that, then by all means, you know, I will try and do that. But other than that, we'll bring to an end this this Easter festivity. Hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you on the next one.